Hey guys, welcome back. Better Than a Let's Play Season 2, Episode 2. I'm Enigmius. And we're back in our glitchy world. As you may have guessed, if you watched the last episode, we were having a little bit of difficulty with Camera Studio, not even really being able to run for very long at all before crashing due to memory problems. We've solved that. We told Minecraft that no, it can't be a greedy pig and take all of the memory. You have to leave some for the other things. So that's what it did, and now Camera Studio seems to be happy, except you can see this flicker, this rolling sort of surface texture flicker that would be really quite maddening to try and build a series around, because it's very distracting. Even though you can see very clearly in the middle of the screen there's a structure of some sort, it's always drawing your eyes to that kind of column of lava moving down on the right side, and then a bigger pool of lava down in the bottom left, and all the other things underground, not to mention all the flickering. So we had to solve that. Before we really went any further, it was absolutely necessary that we solve this ridiculous flickering issue. Now at fault, if we want to use that word, it's not a very good word in this case, but it's a word that carries a meaning that will work, was OptiFine not working with the pack that we had. Now we're going to switch over here. This is footage taken after we got OptiFine working. Now I'm showing this to you because sometimes people maybe don't necessarily understand the full extent of the difference that it makes to have OptiFine installed versus not. Now you can see there is still isolated cases of surface texture flicker, but nothing really all that bad. Now what ended up happening after a bit of research and a little bit of poking around, we found out that the issue is a file that is downloaded when you first run the monster pack. It's not there when you first download it from Feed the Beast, but when you run it, it downloads this file that is related to, apparently, I read it, I haven't seen anything to confirm it for myself, but what I read is that it's related to Biomes of Plenty. And if you have that file downloaded in the directory where it exists, it will cause that conflict with OptiFine, and the game won't even launch into the main menu screen when you log into the game. What I needed to do was delete that file and then run the game with OptiFine installed and all the other goodies that we wanted to have installed, and it would work perfectly. Difficulty, of course, is when we run it, it will launch that one time and work fine, and then it downloads that file again. So every time we want to run the game with OptiFine installed, we would have to go in and delete that file. Kinda sucked. So I made a batch file now. Instead of just running the launcher, it runs a little batch file that deletes that file if it exists, and then runs the launcher, which will allow me to load into the game without even really realizing that something was going on. If I didn't know that that's what the batch file was doing, I wouldn't know that there was anything different going on as opposed to just running the launcher. It's just a really quick and easy process, and allows us to use the time-lapse, which is cool, because we've got to get a roof on this beast, and already you can see it's a lot different building from, you know, nerd poles and scaffolding and temporary platforms than it is when you can fly around and sort of keep an eye on things as you're building. Because if I had known as I was building right here and now that it was going to look this hideous, I would have made some changes long before we got anything sort of else added to it, which is sort of the key. It doesn't matter if we make a mistake on the profile, the idea is to catch it before we fill out the whole shape and realize that we're not happy with it at all. We're aiming for kind of a dome sort of shape, not a perfect circular dome, but a dome nonetheless. And the shape that we were given by plots.co.uk, you can actually see it on the walls. If you look down from the top down onto the walls, you see that circular profile. The way it's got that sort of weird 90-degree thing in the corners, I don't like that. But I decided that I would duplicate the profile anyways, just to see how it looked and see what we ended up with, and it's not even close to a dome. And so we added some things, and then we broke some things, and then we added and broke and added and broke, which is really a little bit obnoxious because we're using stone, and every time you break it, it reverts to cobblestone. We're too early in the game to be worrying about silk touch picks and all those other things that we could have at our disposal for this to not be obnoxious. Realistically, I should be building the template out of dirt, and then once we're happy with the shape, then replace it with stone if I wanted to save myself the coal, which is currently the single most valuable resource in our world at this point in time is coal. We don't need diamonds. We've got 5 and they're sitting there doing nothing. I don't even have immediate plans for them. We don't need any particular ore right now because we're not building anything that requires ore. It's coal that we use to cook our stone and our sand and our food. That's really all we're using. Now the idea here is that I want to have sort of a central structure, and from that structure will branch off into other structures as we get into more specialized projects later on. Like I said, rather than trying to make space for all of it right now, we're just going to have little buildings scattered all over the landscape. So it's very, very important that we get this one right at the beginning so that later on when we're duplicating the pattern, or at least mimicking the pattern is the basis for something a little bit different but still matching in theme, that it's going to look good. We don't want to get too carried away with this and leave things sit for too long before we finish it off and say, okay, yeah, we'll just deal with that later, because sooner or later we're going to get antsy and we're going to build something that we didn't plan on building yet, and we're going to copy it off this, and then we're going to realize we got 2 structures that weren't done and aren't very good. The one thing this structure does very well, however, is summon zombies to the front door. That's really all I can say. And creepers in hidden locations. I ran out the door at one point, and there was a creeper like just out of my view to the right, and that's exactly where I was going. So I ran out the door, I turn around, close the door, turn off to the right, and there's this creeper right in my face. And I thought, wow, that's not very nice. You see off in the lower left corner there, I'm gathering up all the sand from my pond for glass that we need. We need the glass to make the windows. In addition to fixing this roof, this god-awful roof, I want to get it closed in because right now I'm still vulnerable to spiders. Spiders can still get into the building regardless of the light level inside, because they can just scale the wall and flop right in. So I want to get glass to fill in that gap between the roof section and the wall section. And then we'll be mostly done structurally also, and fixing that hideous roof. It took me a little while. I had to sit down and think to myself, okay, this is not working. This is actually the second iteration on the roof shape. The first one, it didn't even have a shape. You can't even call it a straight line or a curve. It was just blah. This one is kind of sloped. It's more or less on a 45-degree angle, and then it flattens out at the top, which is could be worse, but it's not what I was aiming for. And the problem is that it's too high. The top of the roof is too high, and if we lower the top of the roof and adjust the layers below it accordingly, then it will smooth itself out, and we're actually going to get that done at some point before we're done here. This is serious business. This is a lot of work, and it doesn't happen just because we like it. There's a certain amount of planning, and there's a certain amount of kind of humming and hawing. One of the things that I've really taken to doing in a lot of my structures, now that I can use connected textures, thank you OptiFine, is doubling up on glass blocks where I can to reduce the number of creases that you can see in the corners. You can see now, despite all the angles that are present there, that there's actually only a handful of creases that you can see, which is kind of cool. You can also see we fixed the roof. Now instead of, I think it was actually 6 blocks high before, now it's only 3. And it tapers a little bit. Once we get some microblocks in there, it should look pretty good. And that's actually going to be the next episode. We're going to be adding in the microblocks to smooth out this structure. But one of the things that I had to think about, there's no dart craft in this mod pack as far as I've seen. I've looked around the wiki listing, the mod pack listing for all the different mods that are in it. I don't see it. And I haven't found any force crystals or whatever anyways. So even if I had seen it, it wouldn't be doing any good right now. But Tinker's Construct is here, and Tinker's Construct was actually one of the mods that was listed as problematic with OptiFine. That was the one that was telling me in the error log, Tinker's Construct Don't tell me about this, but it's not compatible with OptiFine. It works fine as long as we get rid of that thing. It's not a big deal. So I want to set up a smeltery. That's like plan number 2. I've actually made a pulverizer, and I've made a dynamo to run the pulverizer, but they're sitting in a chest because I want to get this smeltery up and running first. I don't mind building all the modular power suit stuff, but ever since the last series, after the energy consumption adjustments from the first time that I used modular power suits, it's a luxury thing that I carry around. I don't even use it on low settings because it's just not worth it. It uses too much energy, it drains the suit's power too quickly, and then everybody's sad in the face. So Tinker's Construct is probably going to be the core of my tools. And you can see what I'm doing now. This extra section that I'm building connected to the first is going to be a silo for our smeltery, and it's going to be a very large smeltery because this is what we do. We don't do anything small. We do things big. So the next episode, we're going to be focused on finishing this structure, both the silo and the original structure. We're going to get some microblocks on there. We're going to get that all sorted, and then hopefully we'll get our smeltery in, and we'll be ready to take off from there and make some decisions and do some stuff. So leave your comments and feedback below. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.